I'm Rhett.
And I'm Brandon.
And we're the House Dads. Because we're dads who sell houses.
But we're also husbands, business owners, sports freaks, Christians.
Friends, marketing nerds, TV show bingers, and so many more things.
Like so many of you, we're just trying to do it all. We're trying to do it well.
And that's what we're here to talk about.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of House Dads. This is refreshing.
It is. We're back.
We love our guest.
Solo.
Yeah, we love our guest, but it's been a while where it's just been you and me kicking it, man. So welcome. 2024, if you haven't noticed yet, we're going to do things a little different this year. You know, we've been doing this for a year now. It's popped up in my memories that we announced a year ago that we were doing the House Dads podcast. We were just talking about how cool it would be to have a research guy. This would be the point to point at somebody and say how many podcasts fail within the first year.
Can you Google how many fail?
Yeah.
Where we are?
That guy over there.
We'll get there maybe next year.
I'm pretty sure it's like a significant amount of them don't come back, or they do like a couple episodes and then they don't even make it as far.
I mean, I've been told like how many episodes, and we say I think 40, and like, oh, okay, like it perks up a little bit. People, but either way, we're still learning.
Yeah, exactly. We're learning a lot.
We're tweaking,
and so that's where we're going to start today. We're adjusting things a little bit. We've always wanted to bring this as a community, of people like-minded, heading the same direction as us. And so we're learning what I think that you guys would probably like to hear the most. And these are the ones that we do not solo, but as duos without guests. Yeah. They're going to be a little bit more conversational. Just talk about things that are on our hearts, things that we feel like are that you guys may be going through. And so we're just going to be able to have these open conversations. And then we're going to be dropping them every other week. Yes. Right. And so we'll stagger them with a guest episode, and then we'll do an episode with just us kind of having these conversations. And the ones that we do like this, we're going to have some different segments attached to it. Yeah. So, we'll kind of start off talking about what things are going on, and then, talk about some more stuff that's going on with us. So we just hope it allows you guys to converse with us a little bit more. I know it sounds strange because you're listening to this in the car or watching it from, work or whatever it is.
Bathtub.
But we just... I don't know. Maybe there's
maybe there's some in the bathtub.
There might be some bathtub listeners. I've got some buddies that still take baths, and I'm like, dude, I hadn't fit in a bathtub in like 10 years.
It takes so much time too.
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, but if you're listening to us with your candle and glass of wine and you're in the bath, welcome. Go back and watch the Lululemon episode. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Zoom in a little bit.
I'm kidding.
It's funny though too. You kind of going back to memories of like, how far we've come, but things and memories we've had. But not that long ago, we were filming episodes in here, and it was so hot. Yeah, the AC was broken, and to be transparent, we were trying to shed as many clothes as possible that you couldn't see. Shoes were off, 100%. For sure. Pants were pulled. We almost took the pants off.
Had conversations like, "Hey, Caden, how much can you see?
Can we take our
table?
Pants off? We are so stinking sweaty and hot in here." And now today,
freezing.
We're cold. We're bundled up. So it's the cycle of life.
Yeah, we also shot a guest episode right before this, and if you've watched any of the previous, Rhett has got me in my Lululemon era. And so I was wearing my vest for the last episode. So we're like, we can't match. We got to trade in and out, So fashion advice when you come to the House Dads as well.
Lulu boys.
Yeah. We'll change the name to our podcast.
Yeah. But we're in the middle of January.
Right in the middle of January. I get this feeling, and I think it's telling me that maybe I could invest less time into it. But when fantasy football ends... I'm like, what do I do with all my spare time? I invested all this time, and this year it's sad to say that I didn't bring home a championship. Yeah. I was in the runner-up. I was in the third place game, and I ended up in fourth place. So no prize money, no nothing.
You still made the playoffs, though.
Made the playoffs. Yeah. That's a given, man. I'm never going to be out of the playoffs. Yeah. But okay. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, speaking of research guy, we would need one to say, hey, what are the stats on the record of people who are dads? And is there a stat on the more kids you have, the performance you have? How does that work in your fantasy? Because that's my excuse that I use. I'm like, hey, shut up, y'all. I got 3 kids. Yeah, like I don't care about this. Yeah. But for me, I was in 2 leagues, a redraft league and then a dynasty league. Yeah. Dynasty league was actually really good. I finished, I don't even remember where I finished, but so here's the thing.
I was going to say, is it that good if you don't remember where you finished?
Well, I was, for all season, I was like top 3. I was like, there's 2 that were ahead of me, and I'm like, I have a chance. Yeah. And I lost my playoff game by 0.5 points.
Oh, that's brutal, man.
And I did the math. If I would have won, which if I just would have played one player different, which I almost did,
that's brutal.
I would have won the whole thing because I would have beat every.
The next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
That didn't count. Didn't count.
What ifs?
The redraft league was a horrendous just train wreck.
Yeah.
I won't talk about that.
At least you can just restart. That's easy for next year.
So now we get to actually watch the games
real football.
enjoy them.
And that's it. I'm not actually like, I don't have these divided interests of, I hope he scores, but not here or not with, all that different stuff. But now I can actually just enjoy some football. And I think we figure we go on the record and make some bold predictions on who's going to be in the Super Bowl. Right now, we're talking about this. We're still in the divisional round. We haven't made it to the conference championship rounds. So, you've still got Texans, Ravens, Packers, 49ers, Bucks, Lions, Chiefs, and Bills all in play. And so I am going to make my Cinderella prediction. And I think that Dan Campbell, he's biting off people's kneecaps. He is
drinking 2 venti coffees a day.
2 venti coffees a day. I think they've just got. I don't think they're the best. They're not the most talented team left by any means, but I think they are going to play. I think they're going to beat the Bucks this week. I think then NFC, they'll probably beat the 49ers. I think they're going to find themselves in the Super Bowl. I think that they probably end up losing.
Okay.
2. This is harder for me, the AFC. I don't know. I think probably the Ravens, and I think the Ravens take it home. Whew. I think it's the year of the Hardballs. They just doing their thing, and so I think it's Ravens and Lions, and I think Ravens take it. What you think, Retro?
I think the Taylor Swifts are going to win.
Oh, let's go.
No, I'm kidding.
No?
But that is funny that she's literally taking over the NFL.
I don't think they make it out this week.
I am not confident in them winning. I think I'm going to not steal your pick completely.
Sure.
I do think the Ravens are going to take it all.
I like that.
I do. I think 49ers are going to beat the Packers.
Yep.
I think Buccaneers are going to lose.
Okay.
This next round.
Yep.
And I think taking the cake in the end is going to be the Ravens.
Yeah.
They're hot right now.
Taking the chalk, 49ers and Ravens. You think that's the matchup?
Yep. I think 49ers and Ravens.
I can see that.
That'd be a good.
It's very, very likely. I can see that for sure. And, other stuff that's coming out too, Nick Saban, the Wicked Witch, he's gone.
He is. No, he's out.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like, he's gone. He's, tormented us LSU fans for the last so many years. But he also started the dynasty at LSU too.
Yeah.
So, and by proxy, I guess you would say, or just a roundabout way, he also helped the Saints become what they are because he was a coach of the Miami Dolphins and Drew Brees during the time after he got released from San Diego. And I may be messing up some of the details of the story, but he had 2 teams that he was considering. Miami, which was the head coach by Nick Saban.
Yeah.
There was some things on his medical, all that different stuff that didn't mesh, and something about him and Saban. And so he ends up going to New Orleans. Okay. And then the Saints dynasty is built. So we got a lot to be thankful for old Nick.
What's really, really encouraging is that, yes, LSU fans have had this hatred of Nick Saban for so many years, rightly so. They've showed up and competed, but now that he is gone, the respect is floating to the top. Even from LSU fans, they're like, man, he was a really good coach.
Yeah, there's very few places in sports where you have undoubtable goats.
Yeah.
And he's just the one, so it's like, there's always, you can have these different debates and stuff, but it's like, best coaches, that's it.
They didn't want to admit it because he was with Bama.
He was active.
But now that he's gone, yes, there is thankfulness of all right, maybe we won't have such a hard time, but yes, so much respect is floating to the top.
Yeah, for sure. I have a funny Nick Saban story. I was in my 8th grade year, going into my 9th grade year.
Okay. Middle school Brandon.
Never played a snap of varsity football. Just not very good, anything like that. But when you're that young, you do whatever you can to impress a girl that you like, right?
Yes.
And so around this time, Saban's coaching LSU at this point. And so this girl knows I play football, and I'm like, yeah, girl, I'm pretty good. And this is the things you used to be able to get away with.
Girl, back in the day.
Back in the day, you could look that stuff up. And first of all, just practically speaking, I'm an 8th grader. And I told her that I was getting recruited by a few schools. Listen, I was, I'm thankful my ego is, I'm getting a little bit humbler, but back then I don't know what I was thinking, a little bit. But I told her that I had talked to a few coaches, and one of them was Nick Saban. and that he was, heavy on the trail to recruit little Braden Rishu out of 8th grade, Denham Springs. And
she knew who he was? I'm impressed by that.
Yeah, I mean, she knew who he was, or maybe I said, Coach LSU or whatnot.
Gotcha.
But full story, full circle. I'm glad that I got knocked down a peg with this, but I was working an LSU football game concessions at Amite Baptist Church. We used to raise money for church camp, and we'd go work the little concession stands, right? And so we'd work those, raise money, and I was working it with this girl. Another thing I was trying to do to impress this little 8th grader to date me, and so you have to stay and clean the concession stand, and you don't leave. You're one of the last people to leave the stadium.
Right.
And so we're leaving. We're walking all the way down those big, like the big terrace, the big concrete paved path you have to go down.
Right.
And as we're leaving the stadium, guess who our little group runs into?
Oh, Nick
Saban. And so we're there, and our whole group is like, "Oh, coach." And he was so kind, so nice, shaking hands, saying hello and everything like that after a football game. And the girl kind of nudges me. She's like, "That's him, huh? The guy that you talked to." Like, boom, right there at that moment, I was found out. Hey, coach, I'm Brandon. And it was an awkward van ride back to Amite Baptist Church to be able to tell her, yeah, I made that up. It wasn't true.
Middle school feelings, man. They make you do crazy things.
It makes you do crazy things.
I'm sorry that happened. But I'm also very happy that happened.
I needed to be knocked out of the peg. That was the Lord saying, bro, relax.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Yep.
Caught in the lie.
Yep.
That's cool. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on. A lot of football, obviously, January, but that will be one of our, talk about new segments. One thing that we try to do is talk about current events that not always going to be such man-heavy topics, of course. There could be current events of anything going on. That's just kind of what's pressing right now.
Yeah.
But before getting into the rest, we want to try to give a little call to actions early. And if you get any value from this episode at all, we would be honored if you would share it with somebody. Share it with your mom. We don't care. If you don't get any value from it, you don't have to share it.
Moms love the house stats.
Moms do love it. We actually had a House Moms episode, and it's killer. But yeah, we love for you to share it. We obviously don't want to do this and keep it a secret. We want it to grow.
Right.
At the very least, if you don't want to share it, we'd be honored if you gave us a review. I think Spotify, you just have to tap a star.
Simple.
In Apple, I think you can actually type a little something. But either way, we'd be honored if you do that. And of course, following us on social media, because we're putting out some clips and really cool things on there. So, but yeah, kind of talking about where we've come and what we're doing with the podcast now. It's been a fun year.
It has.
We set some goals and we hit them to do it every single Monday.
It's pretty wild.
We're so frequent in that.
Yeah.
So we stay consistent with it, but we are tweaking it in the sense of how we format it, how often we do it, who our audience is.
Right.
We've gone from episodes to real estate, to parenting, to self-help, to just fun tier ranking videos.
Disney tier lists. Yeah.
They're kind of all over the place. So we were kind of just throwing stuff at the wall last year and seeing what stuck. But, but there were some really fun episodes. And I do think we are kind of zoning in on who we feel like is listening, gets most value out of this. But it's fun to think about the episodes we've had in the past.
Yeah.
What do you feel like some of your favorites were? When
we started thinking and planning, okay, what's 2024 look like? What's House Dad's going to look like? Like I went back and I feel like some themes carry throughout like all our episodes, and so I think that's what we're most passionate about, and I think that's what like our community and our listeners like. And so one of my favorite ones is one of the OG ones talking about work-life balance.
Yeah.
Does it even exist? And so I think it's something that everybody always talks about.
Yeah.
Does balance really exist? We kind of debunked it, if you will, and said we can't really have balance. And we'll talk more about this in a little bit. It's really more of a harmony. That was one of my favorites. And then emotional intelligence was one, because it's just something that a lot of people don't talk much about.
Yeah.
And then I had fun putting you on the spot, even though you copped out and didn't answer, with some would you rather stuff too.
I was probably shaking because he wanted to marry his sister. So a little thrown off there.
Anyway, but those are probably my favorites. What about you?
Yeah, and I think one of your favorites was emotional intelligence because it popped off on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, that might be it. Until we got faked out. Did we ever tell that story from here?
I think we may have hinted at it.
Yeah.
But we had some good views.
One of the rules of podcasts, and Rhett told me this from the beginning, is like you don't look at the numbers, right? And we try not to.
You can look, but don't.
Obsess over the numbers. And so we try not to, but I noticed that when we posted our emotional intelligence podcast on YouTube, it popped off.
It was doing
like, it was like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of views. And I'm like texting Caden, texting Rhett. I'm like, y'all seeing this? It's crazy. And then went back and it looked like a week later and the views started to go
They were
in the
dropping
opposite direction
dramatically.
I'm like, did people like clear it from their history?
like,
They're
how do
like,
you
no,
not
I hate
watch
this.
it?
I don't watch this anymore. Come to find out, what is it, like some bots or something like that?
They
Got
do.
audited.
YouTube's pretty intense and rightly so, of like making sure the numbers you have are pretty
legit
and credible. So
Right.
they were, I think, filtering out the, I don't say bot. I don't know what they do.
I don't know what it is.
It was a normal thing. We still have a lot of views on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was a good episode. I think some of my favorites, man, I'm trying to think of some topics. Work-life balance was like, yes, one of the OGs. I think that was a topic we really wanted to talk about the most.
Yeah.
I had some fun with the parenting ones in the sense of like, it just made me feel like, hey, I'm not alone. We're both going through the same thing. I don't know what specific one. Maybe parenting fails was one. And
Yeah, that was a really good one.
that was a good one.
Yeah.
The tier ones were really fun.
Yeah.
And I know we're close to these, but technically it was last year. But the guest episodes, man,
Those were so good.
Getting into those,
Yeah.
They've been game changers for us in the sense of hearing other stories
Yeah.
and like seeing them, give them the platform to talk and share their story that they may not have gotten anywhere else.
Otherwise,
you know?
yeah.
So those have been really cool.
Yeah, and each one of those guest episodes, and we just filmed one, which we can't wait for you to see in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
We kind of come in with our own mindset of like, hey, this is maybe where this goes.
Mm-hmm.
We have a few questions we plan to ask, and then seeing where it goes is always so much fun because it's like, oh, that's never where we expected it, but it comes out where we learn a lot from it, and so we think you guys do too.
Yep.
So yeah, one of the new segments we're going to start doing, right, is some listener emails, if you will, like a little mailbag segment. And so before we got to necessarily announce this, I polled some of my buddies who I know listen. And my buddy William, shout out Will, he gave me a pretty good question that I love. And I'm going to read it exactly how he sent it to me. And then I'm going to modify it for you, Rhett, because I want to put you on the spot.
Yes.
So he said, if MySpace existed today, Caden, do you even MySpace? Does that? Okay. Yeah. So, depending on your age out there, you may or
People
may not.
listening most likely have heard.
Yeah, you probably know what MySpace is. Well, he said if MySpace existed today, what would your page look like? For example, the song, the background, your top 8, and he said, and where do I fall in the top 8, and why is it second only after your wife? Like, I love that he asserted himself in the second place. Rhett, you don't have to name all 8. I want you to talk a little bit about like the song, the background,
Oh, jeez.
and why I would be second after Brandy.
Yeah, I mean, business wise, you'd have to be second.
Yeah, makes sense.
No,
Makes sense.
MySpace, I remember it specifically. That top 8 was so toxic in high school.
Oh, it
I mean,
was
we
so
made one
bad.
friend mad, you would be dropped. If you dropped completely, oh, snap.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
Today, if I had it, I mean, I have a lot of fun with social media, so it would probably change a little bit here and there. But,
Right.
And knowing that we are in the business of real estate and marketing, it would probably be branded to the Sandusky Group with some of the same colors.
Yeah.
Song, I mean, honestly, I would probably change that sucker every week.
Yeah.
I mean, if not more than that. I love music, and I change it. On the way here, I was
Kind of your mood.
Don't Heart Me. I was listening to the La La Land soundtrack.
My guy. I can see that being your
I'm
back.
listening to Drake and Meek Mill. Sometimes I'm listening to a little Chris Stapleton. I don't know what mood I'm going to be in,
guy. Diverse taste.
So I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm pretty mature
that.
with that. So my song choice, I couldn't tell you. But it would probably be along the theme of branding wise with marketing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to touch top 8. One, I don't even know if I have 8 friends,
That's a false
close
statement.
friends.
Yeah, whatever.
That care about me too.
Oh, dang. Shooting shot. Yeah.
I saw a meme the other day. It was like, hey, it smells like wrong dog in here. And you say, what's wrong dog? And you say, everything.
Oh, that's bad. I've done up dog a lot, but wrong dog, that's
Everything.
good. I'm going to add that to the dad joke repertoire.
Yep. So that's my MySpace.
Yeah.
What
Top
about you?
8 was so toxic exactly because of like, especially when you're dating somebody, it's like, do you move your bro back and move her up? That was difficult. And then also too, it's like, if you had somebody else in the spot that they didn't have you in, it's like, wait, who's investing more in this friendship?
Such a toxic thing.
But I'll never forget going to those third-party sites and crashing my parents' computer to like find
HTML
the
codes.
banners to be able to put up there and songs that you'd be able to put up there. Young kids, you'll never know the struggle.
We were coding it.
It was so
Middle
fun,
school.
man. But much to Caden's chagrin, I would have the song "To Be a Man" by Darius Rucker up there.
Can't find myself.
Listen, if you hadn't heard that song, Darius Rucker's going to give me royalties. Listen to it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's on Spotify. It's going to actually talk a little bit about what we talk about today.
Yeah. Brandon was asking Caden, hey, is there any way we can play this song? And Caden basically said, yeah, if you want to get sued, play it. Man.
Yeah, that's how we can
fine.
do it. If we're going to get sued because I said it, cut that out, Caden.
Yes.
But anyway.
But kind of, I guess, recapping that is going to be a segment we do.
Yeah,
it's
every
it's a shot in the dark because we could get nothing.
Yeah, please
so
send
please send us
stuff
stuff. It could be a DM. It could be a email. It could be a text. Just
Yeah.
asking us a question. You can share your thoughts. We just want to react to it, answer it.
Yeah.
But that was a good. That was
Maybe
a
a
good
funny
first one.
story to share that you're dealing
Yeah.
with that we can teach other people or talk to other people about. We'd
Yep.
love to.
Be fun.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Are we doing a story time?
I mean, I think you could share a little
Okay.
bit about what you were talking about with
I'll
Madison.
share a story.
Yeah.
That will be another segment.
Yeah.
Story time.
Please.
So these will be, they can be funny. They can be just something we've gone through. I won't say this has the most relevance to what we're talking about, but it's
I think it does.
It's fun. So we again are in January. We have been coming off cancellation of schools because of weather,
Ice storms.
holidays, and just not a lot of school and routine has been happening. So we've been having a little, kids when they're not in a routine, it's rough.
Yeah.
Very rough. So behaviorally, specifically, and our 4-year-old has been giving us a run for our money. And there was one night where we were doing a little family get together with Brandy's family, and we stayed up past bedtime.
Yeah, that's
at the
the worst.
grandparents, getting filled up with sweets.
Yeah.
She was like begging to go to sleep. She was just so tired.
Yeah.
And she, of course, you don't say, I want to go to sleep. You act out. And it was just,
Yeah.
it was tough. So finally got her to bed. And the next morning came, I was able to get up, kind of do my thing. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh no, we have a hatch light.
Yeah,
When they change
we do
colors
too.
when it's time to wake up. We
Yeah.
had it set for school time.
Right.
And granted, they still wake up pretty early sometimes, but I'm like, there's no way she's going to wake up before this light. She was tired.
Right.
If she wakes up too soon, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So I grabbed Brandy's phone. It's hooked up to hers. I had to go try to change the light.
So is ours. Courtney's is hooked up.
And I have to.
Yeah.
I can't do it from my room. I have to go up to the stair like a
Yeah.
certain point because the Wi-Fi didn't connect. So I'm trying to get it connect. It won't connect, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to. It goes off at 6:35. This is 6:32. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to manually do this. I'm gonna have to be waiting for it to change, and I'm gonna have to hurry up and tap it to change it.
Right.
So like that's the game plan. Sitting there watching my phone. 6:35 pops up, changes green, silent, and I'm like, all right, game
Quick,
time.
quick. Yeah.
I try to do it real quick. What am I doing? I'm changing the color. I'm changing the sounds. It's like a rave in there, basically. she wakes up.
Hey, Dad.
No, she was like it was not pretty.
Not good.
Rough day because she woke up early.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's been tough, man, getting that
Yeah.
routine back.
I think it's the perfect place to start because as dads and just men, like there's a lot expected of us.
Yep.
Or there should be a lot expected of us.
Yeah.
I'm not. We're not downplaying the expectations or like kind of what you set for yourself or others set for you. I think it's just hard. Mm-hmm. And this is not going to be a podcast that you come to today and it's like, oh, just two dudes venting about how hard it
Right.
is, or just a therapy session. But this is a safe space, and I don't think a lot of times we talk about all the places that we're pulled.
Right.
We're spinning a million different plates. We're trying to do all these things well. And a lot of times you're just like, man, this is rough. This is hard.
Yeah.
And so that's why that Darius Rucker song, To Be a Man, kind of spun my wheels. I don't ride around listen to that song and have tears in my eyes. But I just
it can't put tears in the eyes. It was
no,
a
it
good
can.
song.
It can.
The words.
It just makes you think about like all these directions you're pulled in.
Right.
And you're trying your best, and you always feel like there's an area that you can do better. And you're like, man, I'm really trying, but I just so much you expect. Like, okay, I want to work out and I want to eat better. It's like, okay, but that takes time and planning and money. Okay, well, I want to make sure I'm providing for my family, not only now, but in the future. And I want to make sure that I'm being a good husband and planning date night. I want to make sure I'm being present and being a dad and doing it. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so, and then also too, you have this like societal pressure that it's like, there's only two dads. There's only two father figures, only two types of men that you can have, and there's no in between. You got that toxic masculinity that I think is a little bit more, previous generations, but it's the tough dad, the hard dad. He just goes to work and comes home, takes his pants off, and sits on the recliner and watches TV.
Give me a beer.
It's like that's the, Dad doesn't show emotions. Dad doesn't cry. Dad doesn't do those things. So you've got that. That's in TV and pushed and shown everywhere, which is not healthy, obviously. No. We'll talk about that. No, it wasn't the worst thing. But then you've got the other side of, I think, a lot of sitcoms and TV shows and stuff today. It's like where dad is completely helpless.
Idiot.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
He's always like, God, if he didn't have his wife, he would do absolutely nothing right. Right. Now, we are both very thankful for our wives, and they are our better halves, clearly. But it's like, no, dad's capable. Dad can do things. He's not an idiot. He's not to be, just totally tossed out and doesn't help anything. And so because being a dad is a 24/7 job and it's got its different sets of challenges, it's just, maybe a little bit of a vent session. Maybe I shouldn't have said up front that it's not a vent session or therapy altogether.
It's just an honest conversation.
It is. That's what it is. And so I guess, what do you think? What's the first thing that comes to your mind, like, of just complexity of all this, like the challenges of being a dad?
Yeah. Well, so first I want to give a disclaimer too.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of moms, even especially after our wives have listened,
for sure,
maybe listening to this, we are not downplaying motherhood whatsoever. Sure. I don't think it's a competition of whose job is harder. No, we're all on the same team, striving for the same thing. We're just obviously coming from the point of view of hardworking dads.
That's right.
So I guess, what comes to mind there is I think you're right. I guess immediately you kind of go to, all right, how was my dad, or how was my father-in-law to my wife and stuff like that. And, I think it kind of goes to, I've kind of shared it in the past episode of like, I don't like a lot of the stereotypes of like that. I feel like the toxic dad is definitely more relevant. I say not more relevant, but like more than you think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I even, yesterday, one of the girls got hurt, and I said, hey, you know what I do when I get hurt? I go, I'm strong. I'm not hurt. And I'm thinking,
I know.
I think I should probably say, hey, it's okay to be sad and upset. So that bled into me. So I'm thinking, all right, was I raised like that?
Same. Like literally, Max is just running through the living room. He slips and he falls, and he was being dramatic. Yeah. Right. Yes, his feelings were hurt, but he wasn't hurt. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, get off, knock it off. Like, get up, knock it off. You're good. You're good. And Courtney was like, it's okay for him to be upset for a minute. So you still have that rubbing off. I'm like, I know.
Brittany does the same thing to me. When the girls get hurt, I immediately say, you're okay. And she'll correct me sometimes like, hey, they're not okay.
Right. They didn't get hurt.
They're bleeding. I'm like, I'm just trying to get the mind off of it.
Exactly.
Hardworking dads, thinking of like what comes to mind with the struggles. You're right. It's the balance. It's the attempted balance, is which we've said we've debunked. It's the harmony that we strive for. The feeling of providing, I think, is it's hard to grasp, and not to put it into the wife's court by any means of like, hey, you should understand more, but like that is a pressure that just feels hard to explain.
It is,
especially in our industry, especially
when you never know when the next paycheck's coming.
There's the ups and downs of business, but there's also like, all right, we don't have a 9 to 5. If I'm not working, I feel guilty. But if I'm working, if I am going to work and I'm not being efficient with my time, I feel guilty because it could be with them. Yeah. So it's a lot of tugging and pulling, especially with like the holidays of like, all right, I want to, like today, the girls are out of school. A lot of the kids are out of school. I'm like, but I have to work, but also don't want to go home and like everything just be a mess because, it's a hard time doing that. Right. I want to be there to help. So where do we show up? Sometimes you do have to say no to one thing. It may look like you're being a jerk. Right. But trying to give the vision of, hey, I'm doing it for this. Does that make sense?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's especially hard in our industry or any place where you own a business or you work for yourself, is you're trading time for money in a lot of places. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to say, okay, I can't do that family thing right now. Yeah. Because you can. You can, but it's what are you choosing to sacrifice? And that's what we've talked about in previous episodes and throughout all of this, is that there's no balance. It's 4 hours at home and 4 hours at work equals the perfect balance. Right. It's never that. It's a harmony of, okay, something's going to slip through the cracks. What should slip through the cracks right now during this time? What is the priority? What is most important? Yep. And it's not as simple as saying, okay, well, family time is most important, so I'm going to spend 6 hours there and 4 hours at work. Yeah. It's never just that simple. No. And so it's always hard to think about that and then execute that
Yes.
and keep those things in line.
And we have some examples. I mean, of course, we give examples of our industry. We're pretty flexible.
Sure.
We can kind of make our schedules
Right.
to an extent.
Right.
But, there are working dads who they work shift work, or they work a 9 to 5 where they don't have the ability to help other than before 9 or after 5.
Right.
We have examples of, we didn't write it down here, you may be able to talk to it, like military families, like deployment, like just being away and not being able to come and help. But you feel like you're serving in more capacities than just your family, obviously your country. So you have to, adjust to your work schedule, worry about providing not just for this month's paycheck or this month's groceries and tuition. You're thinking about, you're about to get a girl.
Yeah.
I've got 2 girls. I'm thinking about weddings.
For a wedding.
Hopefully they don't ever get married. I don't have to pay for that. But and in high school, you think, all right, I got to get them a car.
Yeah.
Do they share a car? You're thinking you got to think about the future, what you can, save up and provide for. And on top of all of that, you got to come home and you got to be turned on emotionally. You got to be emotionally present. You got to be on in the sense of, hey, it's okay to cry. Like those learning lessons.
Right.
You got to be able to show up for that.
Teaching and loving on your kids. And so it's you're pulled in a lot of different directions. And that's what I feel for like my brother, and I won't go into it too much, but being in the military and his family and the demand that is where it's like, oh, well, no, first I have to answer to this. Right. And I'm going for months at a time or, in a lesser, but still an important place is like, shift workers and working nights and days. And, some of the girls in our office, their husbands and significant others do that. And it's like, I couldn't imagine having to try and be a dad, a husband, a significant other, to be all those things when it's like, I'm sleeping during the day, working at night and trying to be present and available for my family. It's like, man, regardless of the field, the industry, the demands, the pressures, and all that is tough.
Yep.
And then on top of that, like you said, one of the things that catches me and hits me, it's like, man, I'm trying to make sure I got the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months straight. And then you're like, wait, I got to have some kind of retirement set up and my investment straight. And so it's like, man, that's why it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot.
And I think those pressures kind of go back to what you were talking about. They cause, I think, a lot of men to go towards either the toxic masculinity
That's
or
it, dude.
the all right, well, I'm on at work, so at home I'm dumb. I'm just, tell me what to do, wife.
Yes, ma'am, whatever. You're just absent. And dude, I think that's the perfect place. It's because I think in anything in life, you don't fail if you don't try.
Yeah.
And so the place that most dads take is say, well, I'm just not going to try.
Yeah.
And we don't say that or we don't admit that. It's like, well, I'm not going to really try and be that present because it's just too much demanded of me. And so if I try that and I fail and I fall short, well, then that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Or that exposes me.
Yeah.
Or it gives me that level of accountability that I want. So instead, I'm just going to be totally stoic, totally cut off, totally removed and detached emotionally. Or like you said, it's like, well, or I'm just going to be like, okay, yes, ma'am, whatever. And just not have any leadership in your home. Right. You're not just going to,
you're being led.
Yes.
You should be the leader.
Yes. And so not to mention on top of all the spiritual leadership of your home is such an important part of all of it. And so I think that's where those two ends of the pendulum, what type of dad you can be, but really it's supposed to be somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Right. And then stacking on top of that, like, I've read in some different articles like the superhero syndrome, where it's like, oh, well, dads are just expected to be able to fix it all. Yeah. And it's like, man, I'm never going to be the dad that is like just totally doing all of the work around the house. Yeah. Like I pay a guy to cut my grass. Like it's just, that's like I had to decide, okay, am I going to take that time out of my work and family schedule or no, my buddy Taylor's got the grass, and same thing is like, man, if we got an issue with the cars, we bringing it to the dealership.
My dad is the type, he knows how to fix everything. He has a tool for everything. I've often felt the pressures of like, man, I guess I got to be like that. I'm not like that. I told Brandon, like, look, I'm not handy. I asked for Christmas this year. I was like, maybe I can use some tools.
Let's go.
Give me a tool set. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, there's that pressure to feel like you do have to fix a lot of things and just step in and not address the issue, but just try to fix the problem and numb it.
And that pressure, and we talked about this in the episode with the wives, that's something that both of us do, and we shouldn't do it as much, is we feel like we need to be this superhero. So anytime our wives or our children come to us with an issue, it's always, we need to fix it as opposed to sometimes just listening. Sometimes I get that with my boys, like when Max fell, it's like, okay, let me fix this, as opposed to just being there with him. He didn't need to fix. No. And so same with our wives and all that too. You know, it's just important for us to not fall into either one of those stereotypes. For sure. Right. We do that. Obviously, opening communication is huge, but you know, I think that the biggest thing, and we're getting away from just teaching and preaching and coming up with bullet points and stuff. But the one like when we did every other episode, we started with point number 1. And it was the same thing every single time, because it's the place that all of our issues have to start, and it's with gratitude. Like, what a freaking honor it is to wear the badge that you wear. Whatever it is. Like, if you're a dad, if you're a husband, if you're a significant other, if you're just a man, like, be proud of it, be thankful for it, be grateful for it. You know, and it brings me back in perspective. Like, I've got 2 guys that I know that would give anything to be a dad. Would give anything to have the issues that I have. For sure. Right. And so, like, you know, if you were longing for that for a point of time, don't ever forget that. Be grateful for that. And I've got a friend who just found out he was going to be a dad after like a long time of trying. And it's just that awesome. Freedom, that celebration, that excitement. And it's just like, man, I don't ever take that for granted, because if you take it for granted, you'll never have to lose a thing. It could just be taken from you. Absolutely, man. So it is an honor. Yeah, it's an honor. That's a big deal. And it's not an accident that each one of our episodes before started with being grateful. Every time we started writing, like, all right, this is where we begin. That's the foundation. Every time, man. But yeah, you're right. Perspective is just, it's key. You know, you gotta just kind of step back and think, you know what, this is an honor to do. You can't do anything about it. You're in it. So like, you enjoy it and see how honorable it is. But, you know, again, not knocking moms, you guys are everything too, but like, dads are pretty resilient, man. We, you know, we bounce back. We have to go through some things, and especially the older you get, you know, more things are thrown at you, and we're the stable, constant. We should be the stable, constant leader in our house. So we are the filter of those things coming in, and how we react and respond to them is being an example to our kids and our wives. So we are resilient, and if you feel like you're not, I mean, I think you're more resilient than you think you are. Something, you know, that I've had to be resilient of recently is my dad. Speaking of dads, he's in the hospital. He's been in the hospital for about a month now. And it's been tough to see him, you know, he's the dad. He's the strong person, and now he's the weakest. He can't do much. He can't even walk right now. Mom's going through a lot. And then, you know, it all happened around Christmas time. And what are your kids thinking of during Christmas time? Presents, right? Obviously, I'm going through like seeing my mom hurt, my dad hurt. So my mom came to visit after a while to bring some presents to the girls, and I you know, told my kids, I was like, hey, you're excited about the presents, I know. But Nene hasn't seen you for a long. Yes, her name's Nene. I love that. They did not give her that name. My other nieces did. Terrible one. Your dad's name is Whip. Whip and Nene? Watch me whip. Sorry, I'm Papa. Sorry. So I had to give them the pep talk of like, look, yes, you're getting presents, but Nene is so excited to see you. I need you to, like, you know, ask how Papa is and whatever. And I wouldn't say it went in one ear right out the other, but of course they see the presents and they light up, and they didn't, you know, necessarily give my mom the compassion that I wanted them to. And I've got to suck that up and be resilient and say, you know, give them that teaching moment. I'm going through the same thing, and I have to make sure that they understand that. But I mean, when my dad was, you know, growing up, the resiliency he showed, he's changed. He's been in real estate and then insurance. And real estate, and being in real estate, we know it's a stressful thing. I never once saw him really stress, at least in front of me, about career changes, providing. So he, you know, that's a lot to go through. 1099 employee, you're providing. You know, it's huge. And I never saw that. I never saw him like say, "Hey, we're not doing well." Like he always kept that steady. And I think the resiliency that we're talking about is like what I mentioned earlier. It is just the attempt. It is just the trying. Because I always saw that with my dad too. It's like he may have not always gotten it right. He didn't do everything perfect, but he never did not try. And so like I think that's the worst thing that we could do as dads and as men is just not try. If we just pack it in and just say, oh well, I'm not going to be that because my dad wasn't that for me. Well then that's the worst thing that we can do is just not try. And so like being emotionally attached, we need to try it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Being present for our children, we need to try it. Being the best provider that we can be, we need to try it.
Yeah.
And what I think we find ourselves is that when we make that attempt, we may, fall a little bit higher, a little bit lower than where we expected us to be.
Right.
But if it's lower, well, then at least we can grow. And if it's better, it's like, oh, snap, I'm better than this than I thought that I was. And then we're starting things and instilling things and growing things in our children and our spouses and in the people around us, that it's like, okay, that resiliency of getting knocked down but getting back up is what separates good dads from bad dads. It's not that we get it right.
Yeah.
It's not that we're always perfect. It's that we try.
Yeah.
And we don't stop trying. So
there's no denying the tug and pull and the hard, just the struggles that a hardworking dad goes through, right? We're not denying that. But, as we talk about these things and preaching to the choir here, or I'm trying to learn and practice what I preach here, but like notice as we say those things, the superhero syndrome, toxic masculinity, or just kind of sitting by the wayside and being, letting the wife lead, try to notice and see if you fall into any of those camps, right? And if you do, get your spark up and, change it, for lack of better words, right? So find and challenge yourself to find that and fight and get that perspective of just being grateful that you have the honor to be a dad. You have the ability to work hard, right? There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, but it doesn't necessarily you have to label life as bad,
Yeah, and it's so important too to surround yourself with other people who are like taking pride in being a good dad, being a good man, being a good husband. There's nothing I hate more, man, than getting in a group of guys and they're just complaining about their kids, complaining about their spouse. There's a difference, man. Rhett and I get together, we'll vent about a tough night that Madison had or a tough day that Lucas had. But it's different when it's like you lack that gratitude and it's just complaining, as opposed to saying, hey, man, y'all going through this? Yes, we're going through it. And that's what we're doing here today. That's why I said it's going to be a little therapy session. But we're not complaining about it. We see it as a badge of honor. And it's like, we're going to do something about it. And if you see a dad doing a good job, tell him, like, man, I love how you take care of your children. Sure. I love how you love on your children. You're not detached from your children. It's something that we need to praise more in a community with a bunch of guys.
Right.
Is to say, like, no, being a good dad is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And I tell that, like, I love like finding stuff in common with your kids to continue to invest in, even if it's not just what you love, like continuing to grow that relationship with them. There's people that I know that I tell them, I'm like, I love the relationship you have with your kids. So I want to follow more of you to figure out what the heck you're doing. It's big. It's huge.
Yeah. It is reassuring to like know, the struggles you're going through and you feel to know other people are going through it. Yep. So this might've been felt like a little therapy event session. Yeah. Again, we're going through stuff. Yeah, we want you to see that you're not alone, and hopefully it resonated with you.
And if nobody's telling you, to all the hardworking dads out there, to the guys who are trying and not giving up, we see you. Yep. So we're glad that you're here. And in this next year, that's what we're really trying to create this space for. Not just dads, but for guys. And look, I know that there's probably a lot of moms and ladies who watch this episode. And maybe it's just, hey, you see some things in your fella that maybe he could do better. But it's like it's not the gap, it's the attempt that we need. And so, regardless of who's watching this, you're not alone. We're dealing with it and walking through it with you. And so, in closing, man, if you got a funny story or something to share with us, a question, serious, funny, it could be like the MySpace one. It could be funny or it can be serious. We really encourage you. It'd probably be easiest, I'd say, to probably just DM us on the House Dads page on Instagram or Facebook. So it goes to both of us and our team, and we'll put it in a rotation. We promise. We'll shout you out if you want to be shouted out. We'll give you a little shout out on the episode. But anything else?
No, man, that's good.
Cool. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you next time.
See ya.